It's been called the Citizen Kane of jukebox musicals. Critics have praised its editing for redefining the grammar of movie musicals and movies as a whole. Scholars have scrutinized its subtext and related it to themes of British classism and the decline of classism, and there's some ageism and youth and rebellious culture in there. But above all of that, I think the most important thing to take away from this movie is that it is a legitimately funny comedy.
Hey, Ringo, you know what just happened to me? No, I don't.
Regardless of whether or not you are a Beatles fan or a musical fan, whether you're young or you're old, I think this movie has something that appeals to everybody. I think it's extremely witty. I think it's extremely well shot. It's thoughtfully and tastefully composed, and it's done so in a way that embraces a very nonconformist style that sets it kind of outside of time in such a way that it has aged beautifully and it will continue to age beautifully for the rest of time. And anybody who ever watches it can come away with a smile on their face and probably a song or two stuck in their head. Like, the fact that it's the Beatles is helpful, but even if this was a movie that, if the Beatles were a concoction of just this movie and did not exist outside of it, I think we would still say, dang, that was a great movie, that one-off movie. Remember when they invented that group called the Beatles and they just had those songs in that movie? That was super awesome. You know, why didn't they ever make a sequel to that? I laughed a lot watching it the first time, and I did a reaction to it, and then I put on subtitles, and I laughed probably even harder watching it a second time, because this movie is as packed with jokes as a Zucker Brothers movie, like Airplane or Top Secret, but the real influences we can talk about are a little bit closer to some of the stuff that's over here. But it's a movie that's so jam-packed with jokes that it's impossible to catch them all the first time through, so you have to watch it a second time, and you want to watch it a second time because the music in it is so good and the jokes in it are so consistently funny.
Shay, take that wig off. It suits you.
It suits
what are
you.
You up to?
Page 5.
And it is unmistakably a movie that is shot in the 1960s, and it's all in the styles and everything like that. But because it has this nonconformist thing, it doesn't conform to structure, doesn't conform to time, and doesn't conform to space. So it just exists as this beautiful artifact. So that's my initial spiel. It's extremely funny. It holds up beautifully, as everybody knows. Directed by Richard Lester. Here we go. So I've got some notes about just the pre-production stuff because I found that really interesting, just wanting to dig into how this movie got made. I'm going to be talking a lot about this movie, and I'm going to be saying how, unconventional and nonconformist it is, and I don't want to blow it out of proportion, and I don't want to be too English major, the curtains are blue because of the author's sadness. Like, I don't want to be too overanalyzing or blowing it out of proportion or reading too much into it. It's pretty experimental for the time. We have since expanded on it and taken leaps and bounds, based on the first steps that it took, right? So, no, a 2025 little zoomer maybe will not see it as the craziest thing ever. But it is pretty dang crazy, and in 1964, it would have actually been the craziest thing ever. Or for a lot of people who weren't like film buffs or anything like that, it would be exposing them to something that they maybe wouldn't have seen too much of otherwise. It could have been like a baby's first new wave outing with a little Beatles movie. And that's pretty dang cool. What an irreverent little movie this is. The way it's shot and the little gags that they're executing. So there are some cool layers to the movie, and how that all came about was interesting to learn about. So we'll talk about that, and then I want to talk about a little bit of the editing, and then a couple of the commentary, themes that they were going for, And then that'll probably be it. And then we'll just check in with the chat whenever if you guys have thoughts on it. They started production on this movie right after the Beatles' first trip to America to be on the Ed Sullivan Show, and United Artists hit them up and said, hey, do you guys want to make a movie? And among whoever all had offers in at the time, I'm sure there were a number of them, the perhaps most compelling offer was from United Artists because specifically they didn't really care about the movie that much. They knew that whatever the movie was going to be, if they made it with a low enough budget, like all of these types of movies were usually made, they were going to recoup their money in spades just off of the soundtrack alone that was going to come with it. So they basically were just like, hey, you guys can come make a movie for us. You can just kind of do whatever you want. We're not really going to hold you to anything too strict. Just keep the budget low, get it in on time, and do whatever you want. And I think that was especially appealing to the group and to the manager, Brian Epstein. You know, they didn't want to be told what to do. There is a quote from John Lennon. He said, we'd made it clear to Brian Epstein, that we weren't interested in being one of those typical nobody understands our music plots where the local dignitaries are trying to ban something as terrible as the Saturday Night Hop. The kind of thing where we just pop up a couple of times between the action. Never mind all our pals. How could we face each other if we had allowed ourselves to be involved in that kind of movie? And for those who don't know, United Artists, the kind of hands-off approach was kind of the norm for them. They were, for a while, not always. They were made in like 1919 by Charlie Chaplin, Mary Pickford, D.W. Griffith, and did I write it down? And Douglas Fairbanks. And they were just like a cool anti-establishment indie studio where artists could come and make movies basically hands-off. For a couple of decades, they were just making cool art. They weren't always the most profitable, but they were taking chances, and it was very cool. And then they got bought out by MGM. Now they're owned by Amazon because everything sucks now. But for a little minute there, they were cool. And so they were like, the Beatles want to make some kind of weirdo thing or whatever. That sounds cool. So they assigned a producer named Walter Shenson to find the proper personnel to make the movie, the right writer and the right director, right? So Walter Shenson meets with the Beatles to get a temperature check and see what they want to do. And he describes meeting them like being in the middle of a Marx Brothers movie. And that right there is, to me, like, that's the kernel. That is completely identifiable in the movie, and that is something that I really appreciate, knowing that that was something right from the start, because it's like, these guys are just witty and charming and fun to be around, and how can we capture that on film? How can we find the right people to just capture their charisma and just put it on film, right? The suggestion is made for this guy, Richard Lester. He is like a stinky American guy, and he did just come off of making this stinky Hollywood jukebox musical, the type that John Lennon and them probably all hated. But he also used to work with the Gooners, and they are a British comedy troupe who I had never heard of, and I don't know much about them still, but to my understanding, they were basically the Monty Python of their time. And the Beatles were big fans of that. They liked the Beatles themselves were Gooners, you might say. And one of the Gooners is Peter Sellers, aka Dr. Strangelove, if you've seen that film. And George Martin, the Beatles record producer, knows Peter Sellers. So George Martin makes a call to Peter Sellers and says, hey, do you remember Richard Lester? Do you have his phone number? Can I get his phone number? You know, make some phone calls, bobbity bibbity bop. They land Richard Lester as the director for the film. And so when they get Richard Lester, he kind of comes in bringing his weird, like, influences with him. He's got the Goons kind of surrealist comedy. He's got this unique, frantic editing style that we'll talk a little bit about. He's got this blend of 20s slapstick and this British, at the time, contemporary realism movement that's coming in. And all of these things all just kind of coming together in a big gumbo. and he happens to know a writer that can tackle the job. So it's just like it's like a big club and you ain't invited type thing where this guy knows that guy and this guy knows that guy. So Richard Lester knows a guy named Alan Owen. And Alan Owen he was born in Wales, but he grew up in Liverpool, and he wrote a Liverpool-based play called let me try that again. He grew up in Liverpool, and he wrote a Liverpool-based play called No Trams to Lime Street, which is like the most British thing that I've ever heard, so much so that I couldn't even just get it out just now. And the Beatles all liked it. And so Alan Owen meets with Brian and the Beatles and George Martin and probably George R.R. Martin. Is that his name? The guy who writes the Game of Thrones books? He was probably there too as a wee lad. And so they all try to get on the same page. And notably, he's not a big film writer or anything like that. He is a local playwright who writes for TV. He's written some plays. That's what a playwright is. And he's well regarded. He knows how to write for comedy. He knows how to write for drama. He knows how to have interesting people say sharp things on low budget sets. That's what a play is, and that's what television is. So he's gonna be perfect. And he shows an affinity based on this play that he's done, the No Trams to Lime Street one. He has an affinity for social commentary, and he's gonna be able to tap into what Richard Lester sees as an opportunity to make a comment on this changing social climate. So I have a quote from Richard Lester here. The general aim of this film was to present what was apparently becoming a social phenomenon in this country. Anarchy is too strong a word, but the quality of confidence that the boys exuded. Confidence that they could dress as they liked, speak as they liked, talk to the Queen as they liked, talk to the people on the train who fought the war for them as they liked. British society, Lester said, was still based on privilege. Privilege by schooling, privilege by birth, privilege by accent, privilege by speech. The Beatles were the first people to attack this. They said, if you want something, do it. You can do it. Forget all this talk about talent or ability or money or speech. Just do it. So they're off. They're going to make their little indie anti-establishment thing, anti-Hollywood thing. They've got United Artists lined up. Everybody's lined up. Writers, directors, full speed. The Gooner train is... I'm going to stop saying that now. I've already run that joke into the ground. Took 5 minutes. So they are full speed ahead. They write the script. They shoot the movie in 7 weeks. Before it even comes out, United Artists is already making their money back because of the pre-orders on the soundtrack. This is the first time this has ever happened, that a movie recouped all its money before it's even released. And then the cherry on top is that the freaking thing comes out and it's actually good. And people actually like it. The critics like it. The kids like it. The dads that take their teenage daughters to see it are happy. The moms are happy. Everybody's happy. Everybody's happy with it. I'm happy with it. Are you guys happy with it? Because it's a great movie. And it's nominated for Best Screenplay. And it's nominated for Best Score. And it loses both. Best Screenplay, it loses to a Cary Grant movie that nobody's thought about in 60 years, so that's kind of lame. But it loses Best Score to Mary Poppins, which, like, you know, like, what am I, I don't think I should be mad at that. I don't think I can be mad at that. It's Mary Poppins. But yeah, on a budget of about $500,000 American dollars, it makes back $14 million. A nice tidy little profit there, and is forever cemented as an all-timer. So in this movie, there are 15 needle drops of songs, but some of them are reprises. So it's actually 11 distinct songs, and then a chunk of that is like a medley, and it's of tracks from their previous record, which all play while they're like dancing and at the club and stuff. And so when you're watching the movie, you actually get 8 new Beatles songs, and then 7 of which comprise the A side of the record. There's one that they don't include, which is kind of strange to me. It's actually the very last track that plays. It's She Loves Me. She loves you. She loves you, not me. She loves you. Yeah. And I will say that on a repeat watches, it was a little bit like, I was kind of a little confused or miffed about just how many reprises there were, and the fact that the medley does come in and include songs from previous albums, the movie probably would be that much better if it was all of the original songs that were going to be accompanying the album. But I have to suspect that they just weren't written in time because of the speed that everything goes. I have to assume that the songs that make up the B-side of the album just weren't written. They just didn't exist at the time of making the movie. The songs that are in the movie are very, very good, and I don't want to poo-poo that necessarily. Like I said, I think it would be a little stronger if there weren't quite as many reprises, so even if they did dig more into the bag of old songs, but it doesn't, it's fine. It's a good little universe of songs that they have right there. They're mostly all hits, so it's good stuff. And the notable thing about the way that they do the music in this movie, particularly with I Should Have Known Better and the standout track Can't Buy Me Love, is that they aren't performance-based. In most instances, when you're watching like a musical, you see the people in it singing the song or dancing to the song or hearing it play on a jukebox or in the car.
Then we'll have that thing off as well, thank you.
Bro, it's diegetic sound, meaning that it's sound that is heard in the movie itself, like the characters themselves can hear it. Like the finale of this movie that's all pretty traditional fare. And so, like I said, this is a movie that is experimental, but doesn't go off the rails with it. They have to keep it still pretty palatable. So like the end of the movie is still shot with them just performing the songs by themselves. But the most beautiful and artful and memorable moments for me are when they break away from that and they do something kind of unexpected. So like you're watching them cut the deck and about to play cards, and then they go into I Should Have Known Better. Oh, sing a song. And they're singing it, but they're like just kind of singing along casually while they're like playing cards or whatever, just doing their thing. And then it just cuts to a different angle of them, and then all of a sudden, illogically, based on the language of cinema, they all have their instruments, and there's like a girl in the little room that they're in, and they're all just playing together, and it's like, what? Huh? Whoa. How did, like, that doesn't make sense conventionally. And so like it plays with the audience's like orientation. It plays with the audience's distance relative to the film. It kind of makes you feel like if whether you're in the film or you're an observer of it looking like an outsider looking in, or if you're like a little kid on the recess thing when they throw up those big rainbow tarps and everybody ducks under it, you kind of feel a little bit like that, like you're involved in the fun and the mischief of it all, Did they ever really play the game or the song? Even the songs that they do shoot, or the song that they play traditionally, like the finale, where they're all on the stage and it's just a couple of songs back to back, the way that it's shot and edited still gives it that same feel, because it is very documentary style. It is very unorthodox. You're shooting like super, super close-ups. You're getting all this intimate vibes. The highlight of this movie for me is, while we're talking about the music and the editing and stuff, is the sequence of Can't Buy Me Love, the first time they do the needle drop of it. To me, this is their Elvis Jailhouse Rock moment, where they are cementing themselves in pop culture, in movie culture, in music culture. Like, everything about the execution of this sequence, I think, is so brilliant. Like, leading up to it and everything, they're walking through these corridors, and they're going up, like, this, like, spiral staircase, and the shooting is all, like, super close and cramped, and everyone's talking over each other, and the manager is still chewing them out about something, and then he's like, okay, you two, now you dummies, you go wait in this other room over here. And then just, like, super quick, it whip pans to a fire escape, they burst it open, we're free! Camera pulls back, the audience can breathe for a second, and then it needle drops the song, and it's like, boom. Freedom. Cinematic, dopamine, right to your neck, right to the head, bro.
And I'm gonna keep you in, even after put the lock in the key and turn it.
What?
Well,
Can't buy me love.
Oh, that's how you just make a memory. That song comes in, and it's just perfect. It's so excellent. And then, they're running down those stairs for a little minute too long, if I had to say any little tiny critique or anything. But then once they're on that big field and they're shooting from the helicopter and everything, and there's just no choreography. Like at one point, one of them's running all along this way, and then he turns and he realizes nobody followed him, so then he runs all the way back, and then they're running around doing the, crossing their arms and ring around the rosieing and falling down and taking tumbles. And it's all just this expression of boys will be boys type energy, and just set to one of the absolute best early Beatles songs that has come out up to this point, at least in my opinion. I just think it's absolutely iconic. And then it's also got it's consistent with that underpinning of the themes and the commentary of the rebelliousness, because it is, the manager just told them to stay in this one spot, and they said, piss off, man, kick rocks. And then they ran outside and did their thing instead. So, it's just got everything for it. And it's great. It's great. For us first-generation fans in the U.S., that was the first time we got to see and hear them talk for an extended period. It was a wonderful experience for that alone. Then there was the music. Yeah. And it's funny, there's also a thing that says that some studio note they got said, do you think that we should maybe dub over the Beatles because of their accents and give them typical Cary Grant Atlantic accents? And Paul responds back something like that when he first hears that. He's like, if we can watch a Hollywood movie where they're fucking talking Texan, then I think they can hear us talking how we talk, something like that. We can talk about the commentary for a bit, the stuff that Richard Lester was talking about with the social movement in England and the classism and privilege and stuff like that. Like, there's the guy on the train who feels entitled to the train car because he uses it regularly.
I travel on this train regularly.
I think he says 2 times a week. Like, that's not even a lot. That's like one day to and from a place. He maybe says 2 days a week, but I think he might have just said 2 times a week.
I travel on this train regularly, twice a week.
Knock it off, Paul. You can't win with his sort. After all, it's his train, isn't it, mister?
And don't take that turn with me, young man. I fought the war for your sort.
I bet you saw you won.
And of course, the boys all tease him and make a scene and everything like that. And, that's where the line is where he's like, I fought in the war for you folk. And he's like, I bet you wish you lost. I'm going to stop doing the accents also, I'm sorry. But basically, him and, the manager and the grandpa, all of the adults in the movie, I'll exclude the grandpa because he's in his own lane as a very clean old man, but...
What a clean old man.
Don't pressure luck. He's sex obsessed. The older generation leading this country to galloping ruin.
Everybody, the manager, the guy with the headphones on that messes with Ringo's drums, they are all worrisome and burdensome and sticks in the mud.
He's out there somewhere. Carl's in trouble. Just to upset me.
You're imagining it, Norm. You're letting it prey on your mind.
No, this is a battle of nerves between John and me.
But John hasn't got any.
What?
Nerves.
And the Beatles are portrayed as out here having fun and doing whatever they want, but also being they laugh a lot at the expense of the managers and all of them and their worry, because underneath all of their joking exterior, of course they're still gonna show up on time and do their number, and they're really upstanding young lads, good gentlemanly chaps. If only the managers could understand that, but they're just too stuffy and conventional and old folky, thus the generational divide of it all.
John, I'm talking to you. This final run-through is important, understand? Important.
And so, I can't necessarily speak to knowing much about the fall of British classism. That's not something that we really learn about here in America. We're not going to learn about the fall of America, that's for damn sure. But it does seem to hit all the similar beats of the rebellious teenage angst stuff, the youth culture stuff that started popping off in the 50s, so I can understand it. Teenagers are still really loud and annoying, though, and we should have some decorum, for the record. Somewhere in the middle would be ideal, and for God's sake, stop, using your phones on speaker in public. Have a little bit of a sense of place, please, people. Teenagers, God's sake. It's actually mostly the old people with the phones on the speakers. But, and so on top of that, we get this scene where, again, it's pretty just, overt and on the nose, where George stumbles into the like teenage clothing store, right? I don't know, they think he's like a spokesperson or something that they sent for, and they're gonna have him read prepared statements on these clothes that they've got, and then he calls them all grotty.
I wouldn't be seeing dead in them. The dead grotty.
Grotty?
Yeah, grotesque.
Make a note of that word and give it to Susan.
Side note, there's a novelization of this movie, and apparently, I don't know if this is true, I did not confirm this, but it is alleged that the novelization is the very first instance of grotty, Grotty, appearing in text. I don't know if I believe that, to be honest, but that's what is said, which I guess would be the same thing as if, like, today, when the Oxford Dictionary's word of the year was, like, Riz or something like that. Whenever they do shit like that, and everybody cringes collectively until their freaking spines snap in half, you know? Might have been one of those instances. But now we just look at it and we're like, yeah, grotty, yeah, you go. But anyway, the store manager is like, he's like, we have our resident teen trendsetter. We basically prop her up, and, you know, whatever she wears, all the kids are gonna want and all that stuff. And he's like, oh yeah, that like fake little teen pop idol. Like, yeah, me and all the Beatles, me and all my friends, we all just have a laugh at her expense because she's a dummy and...
She's a trendsetter. It's her profession.
She's a drag, a well-known drag. We turn the sound down on her and say rude things.
You know, we would never be caught dead wearing those stupid clothes. They're all just artificial and dumb, and we would never just do something because the masses do it. We're just cool and authentic. And so, like, it's a you know, it's a meta commentary, and it's a way for the Beatles to kind of poke fun at that whole culture and everything like that, and posit themselves as so authentic and cool by contrast. And then the manager is super shook by that. He kicks him out of the room, but then also he's like,
You don't think he's a new phenomenon, do you?
You mean an early clue to the new direction?
Where's the calendar?
we don't know if you know, this George boy might be onto something. Some other, like, kind of fun meta commentary that they're doing. There's the scene, the cocktail party, where all the reporters and people are asking the Beatles all these questions.
Are you a mod or a rocker?
No, I'm a mocker.
There's a funny moment. Again, I don't think I caught this the first time watching it, but there is an implicit question that is asked that we don't hear asked, but the answer Paul gives. He says, no, actually, we're just good friends. And I thought that one was pretty funny. Someone asks John what his hobbies are, and I couldn't figure it out. He writes something TS. What could this word be? I had to think about this. I racked my brain for it. I could not figure it out. I Googled it. Tits. It's tits. He wrote tits. Also, there's a moment with John where there's like a lady that sees him and thinks, she's like, oh, you look just like him. They don't mention it, which is also kind of interesting, but
You look just like him.
Do I? You're the first one that said that ever.
Yes, you do, look.
Again, you can put your English major cap on and read into that. I think that's what they're going for in this scene in any case, where she's like, you look just like him. And he's like, no, I don't look anything like him, but what have you heard? And they discuss reputation. He turns and he looks in a little mirror that's right there. I think they're supposed to be doing some type of commentary on reputation and image and public perception. Maybe that one was just like a little gaffe, a little just joke scene where John just thought it would be funny to just say, no, I'm not him. Ha ha ha. Because celebrities do that shit all the time, you know? But if that scene isn't that, you cannot tell me that the very last scene in the movie is not an instance of this. I don't care if I'm putting on my English major cap or anything too hard on this one, but they literally, the last scene of the movie is when they're getting into the helicopter and Paul has all the big stack of the PR photos, the machination, the machine version of them, you know, the PR photos of them from the beginning and their stilted, stiff poses that doesn't really represent them. And they've got all the forged signatures on them because it's fake, it's not really them. And you know what he does? The very last thing that they do in the movie? They unburden themselves. They free themselves of that. They throw that off of the thing, and then they ascend into the sky. You can't tell me that is not a meaningful, you know, a thing. Even my monkey brain saw that and said, oh, that activated some neurons in my brain. You can't tell me that was not intended that way. The less clear one to me, though, is Ringo's journey. Ringo is basically the protagonist in this movie. Kind of. Like, he has I mean, he goes on like a whole little adventure. He has like a whole he has his own little like Truffaut 400 blows soul searching adventure in this movie for like a little minute. Look at him, he's going out and living life, which is kind of funny because he's reading a bliming book, a book. I can't do it as well as they do. That cracked me up when they said that in the movie.
Yeah, a bloomin' book.
When you could be out there betraying a rich American widow or sipping palm wine in Tahiti before you're too old like me.
He's reading a book, and Grandpa says for him to like go touch grass and go parading in the streets to go paint the town red basically before his parts don't work anymore.
Funny, really, because I never thought, but being middle-aged and old takes up most of your time, doesn't it?
You're only right.
And so he decides to do that. He puts on a disguise and he goes soul searching, but he basically just has a terrible time, and it seems to serve as a reminder that not being rich and famous sucks and is terrible, because he just like nothing seems to go right for him. He breaks his camera. Oh, that's so sad. Oh no. And he goes into a bar. He pays for a drink, and then his drink gets shattered. He gets thrown out of the bar. He gets thrown into jail. Like nothing works for him. So I don't know. He also sees this kid, and he talks to this kid who's skipping school, and the kid is like, my favorite thing to do is to hang out with my 3 best friends, and then we see him go running off to go skip rocks. So that's obviously like supposed to be Ringo hanging out with his 3 best friends, the Beatles, and doing what they do together. So I guess it's essentially saying the grass is not necessarily greener on the other side, or like it's greener wherever you water it, or do whatever you want and don't be dissuaded by people, and don't be dissuaded when your camera breaks. Still push on and try to create. I don't know. I was a little lost there. They lost me a little bit there. That happens a lot when I watch artsy movies, you know. I've not seen them all. I'll admit I'm not extremely sophisticated, guys, and I'm sorry if I ever led you to think that might be the case. So I can't exactly tell you the nuances of the Iliad that Ringo goes on, but it actually, well, one thing I will say is it has my favorite shot in the entire movie, which is the shot when he's walking towards the bridge and it's like on like a shore. Look at that shot, man. Damn. And it's just a great shot. It's very French New Wave. It's very just a great composition of shadow and architecture, and it just catches the eye. It's very nice. See, I am sophisticated, aren't I? Wasn't that a sophisticated review? I mean, overall, I love this movie. I can't wait to watch Help. I know absolutely nothing about it. I got the Blu-ray from my library, so it's ready to go. I know that it's in color, but that's all, and that it's by Richard Lester. That's all I know. I literally don't know which year. Actually, no, because I looked it up. So it comes out, we have Beatles for Sale, and then Help, right? And that's it. That's all I got. So that'll be in the near future. I don't know if they go weirder. I don't know if they go tamer. I will also say, and I said this on the Patreon, but it bears repeating, that now is just a fantastic time in 1964 to be a Beatles fan. They put out their first album, it's fantastic. They put out their second album, it's in my opinion even better. Then this third one is coming along and you get an entire movie for it. It's like, oh my god, this is amazing. And like somebody had just said, this is the first time for a lot of people that they're getting to see the Beatles and up on the big screen. Like, this is so much bigger, and it's a movie that gets you right into the vibe of it. I didn't actually mention this. I meant to mention it, but there was a documentary or two that came out in 63 or 4 when the Beatles first came to America, to the Ed Sullivan Show, and I guess that this movie took some stylistic cues from that, which is, again, why some of the shooting feels so documentary style. And so, like I said, it's a movie that invites you to kind of lift the curtain and be behind the curtain, under the veil, whatever. Water under the bridge, up in the air, up in smoke. I don't know, whatever. I'm mixing metaphors, but you know what I mean. Or maybe you don't. Maybe I don't. It's a great time to be a Beatles fan, and you watch this movie, you have a fantastic time at the theater, and then you say, great, now we get to go home and listen to the album, because the album still has 7 more tracks on it, or 8 more tracks on it that I haven't heard yet. And the A side of this record already has the makings of a really good record, so here's hoping that the B side is going to be just as good. And then we've got 3 fantastic albums and a movie, and more on the horizon. And, you know, they've just been knocking it out of the park. I can't wait to see what they're going to continue to do, and the buzz just keeps snowballing. I don't know when it all hits critical mass. I mean, I guess maybe with Beatles for Sale, there's a little misstep, but it's a lot of fun to bear witness to, even 60 something years later. It is fantastic.